Welcome to this episode of Learn Everyday English, your roadway to English proficiency. Got a special guest with me today, my twin brother, Gerald. How's it going, Gerald?
Yeah, it's going good.
All right, glad to have you with me today. As you can see from the topic on the YouTube channel, we're going to be talking about our experiences with maybe racism and discrimination here in the United States. And I guess probably have to say we might not have experienced the level of racism or discrimination as a lot of, say, other African Americans or black folk, maybe due to how we were raised, where we grew up at, and maybe possibly due to the color of our skin, because we're considered, light-skinned African Americans. So, but we have experienced some racism and discrimination. So don't take our experience as normal or normative. I know there's a lot of people that have experienced a lot worse things and some horrific things. So just giving you our perspective as just now 62-year-old African American males here in the United States. But before we get into that, there's 3 things you can do for me. Hey, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and 3, tell your friends about it. Also, remember, I got my How to Talk Texan ebook out on Amazon. Look at the links below. And if you want to buy me a cup of coffee, you can do that. There's a link where you can click and help support this channel. But I won't belabor that issue any longer, and we'll jump into today's topic. We're going to just have a little chit-chat, informal conversation, and start like when we were young and progress as we got older. And if anything comes to mind, we'll bring that up and talk about that. So, we both grew up our dad was in the Army, in the military, and we lived on Army, just Air Force Base, I think, in
Las Vegas?
Outside of, Las Vegas, Nevada, for, I don't know, about 5 years, and then we moved to...
remember much about living in outside of Las Vegas much.
Yeah. Then we moved to Fort Meade, which was an Army base between Baltimore and Maryland and Washington, D.C., and we lived there. And then our dad retired from the Army. Then we moved back to Louisiana, where our parents are from. We lived there for just a brief, short period of time, and then moved to Houston in the early 1970s, where we started 6th grade. So I guess I can start off, growing up on the military base, the Air Force Base in outside of Nevada and in Maryland. I don't really recall any experiencing any racism or discrimination, and maybe that's a good thing. The Army, I guess, is fairly integrated, but this was back in what I guess the late 60s, early 1970s. But our dad, I think, was an officer, if I remember.
Yeah, I think so.
And so we lived in, on base housing for officers, and I guess I remember there was a variety, a good mix of people from different racial backgrounds. So I don't remember having any racial issues growing up there in Nevada or Maryland. Do you, Gerald?
Yeah, not anything personally, but I can relate an incident. I can't remember what grade we were in. Somewhere between 2nd, 3rd, 4th, maybe, or 5th grade, because we moved to Houston when we were in the 6th grade. Maybe, yeah, but I remember I was walking home from school one day, and I guess 2 kids were fighting, like in the yard in the neighborhood. So other kids were watching, and I asked, "Hey, what's happening?" And they said, "Yeah, I guess there's this black kid and a white kid fighting." And they said, "Yeah, the white kid called the black kid the N-word." And so then I remember going home and I asked my mother, like, hey, what am I? Like,
Oh,
what
yeah.
race am I? Because I guess up until then it had never really been a deal, an issue at all growing up. Like you said, we were around, kids of different races, so we all got along. It never was really a big deal, but I guess that was like the first time I'd seen something that started making me question that, hey, everybody
Oh,
isn't the same, or everybody isn't comfortable with everybody else.
okay. Yeah, because that's good. You can add some insight because, yeah, I guess I wasn't probably there when that happened because I don't recall that incident.
Yeah, yeah. So we probably have different situations we were in that kind of shaped our views that the other weren't in, or they
Yeah.
weren't in either. So
Okay. And then I guess, growing up, as our parents, like I said, are from Louisiana, Opelousas, Plaisance area. So we would frequently go to Louisiana to visit relatives, have family reunions every summer. We would spend a month or two with our grandmother and aunt in Opelousas. So we would go back there even before we moved to Houston. And I guess moving on, next stage in life. What I remember, spending time there mainly in Opelousas because my mother was from Plaisance, but it's like a real farming community, pretty much all black or African Americans, so there wasn't really any white people around. I didn't recall anything happening there, but just in general, I remember kind of being backwards. I would think there was not really a lot of mixing or interacting of the races, the black people and white people. Aunt and grandmother, they lived in a, neighborhood, although they were very fair skinned or light skinned. I'll put some pictures of my dad's mom and his sister, but they lived in a black neighborhood. And, they always considered themselves black. It wasn't like they were trying to act white or pass as white. But I remember it was interesting because there was a park that all the black people went to, and there was a white park where all the white people went to. And neighborhoods didn't seem to really be that integrated. Again, remember, this was kind of in the 60s and 1970s, so things were probably a little bit different then than they are today. So I didn't see a lot of mixing of the races. I remember one incident we went to the white park. I'm not sure why. I think our aunt took us there because normally we'd go to the black park. And sad to say, the playground equipment in the black park wasn't the best quality. Park was run down. You went to the white park. It was in much better shape. The equipment was much better. They actually had a swimming pool in the white park. So we went swimming one day. And I remember I was in the pool, but I couldn't really swim well, so I didn't like to go in the deep end. But they had a lifeguard. He was a white kid, probably maybe not much older than us, but he was a teenager. I remember him kind of giving me a hard time, like, "Hey, why don't you go in the deep end? Why don't you go in the deep end?" And he kind of kept harassing and hounding me. And eventually, I kind of got kind of affected me. I got a little bit emotional about that and just wanted to leave. So I didn't think that was necessary what he was telling me because if I wanted to just wade around in the non-deep end, why couldn't I do that? So I took that kind of as an issue. He was picking on me, maybe because I was a black kid in the white park swimming pool. But that's just speculation on my part. But I didn't see him. There was other, adult people or people my size in this area part of the pool, but he didn't say anything to them. So, um, but other than that, I think I remember too. There was a black church, Holy Ghost. Our family
mm,
was Catholic,
yeah,
so there was an all black church that all the black people went to. There was St. Landry's, which was the church where most of the white people went. So that was pretty segregated. And I think later on, a third church opened, Queen of Angels, and we started going there. And there was a little bit more mixed. But I remember one incident at Queen of Angels. I was probably a teenager, maybe 12, 13, 14 years old. And during the Catholic service, there's a point in time where you turn to people around you, extend your hand and shake people's hands. So I remember I turned around behind me and there was an older white man, probably, in his 60s, 70s. I extended my hand to him to shake his hand. I remember he looked down at my hand, looked up, didn't extend his hand, didn't say anything, and looked away, like he didn't want to shake my hand for some reason. And that really impacted me as a kid. I'm like, hey, we're in the church. Everybody should try to live up to Christian principles. Here's this old white guy not wanting to shake my hand. And then I remember I got back in the car. I think I asked my mom, hey, why didn't he want to shake my hand? And I don't remember. I think she's told me something, but I don't remember what it was. But that still to this day, that still kind of left a huge impact on my life. So, but those were kind of the things that I remember growing up as a kid, going to Louisiana in the summers. You have any
Yeah, I forgot
reflections
about
there?
that thing, that story you just told about the man. Vaguely remember that, but yeah, I don't have any specific cases. But I just mentioned while we were going there and visiting, we'd spend like a month, 3, 4 weeks, a month sometime during
Yeah.
the summer, and yeah, that time it was black and white. You could say like one side or the other. The
Mm-hmm.
neighborhoods people lived in were segregated for the most part. Blacks lived in one area, whites in the other. The churches similar, the parks were the same. But we would go there, from when we were, I guess, elementary school through high school, and over time you started seeing like some more like Hispanic people in the
Mm-hmm.
town, maybe working at some of the restaurants or in town, and a few more Asians. But it was still mostly like a black and white situation. Same
Yeah.
thing like in Lake Charles, we had some aunts and cousins that lived there, and it was kind of the same thing. The town was split into where mostly the whites lived and the blacks lived, and I guess you could say the same thing about Houston, but I guess like Houston being a little bigger, more metropolitan town had some areas where there were mixing of the races living together. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was thinking too, yeah, you didn't really see like our family, they didn't really have like, white friends that would come over to your house and have a party or get together. It was either all black people, whereas today you might have Hispanic friends, Asian friends, white friends, and mix of people. Back then, it was pretty much the races seemed to stick to themselves for the most part.
yeah,
All
but I
right,
do
but then yeah,
remember like in elementary school, there was this Japanese exchange student
oh yeah.
who was there, and I guess he and I were pretty good friends. And I remember we used to go down to the basketball park. This is maybe more so going in the middle school or high school. I remember we'd go play ball,
Hmm.
and there's that Filipino guy, Gerardo Mundo,
Yeah,
out there.
moves Mundo, yeah.
So yeah, we were like had friends of all races and nationalities growing up. So like you said,
Yes, it's in, yeah.
maybe a little different than if we had grown up in a predominantly black area and our father hadn't been in the military.
Yeah, and yes, a good point. I think for us, one of the things and this is when we moved to Houston, like in the early 70s, we had these friends. And I think that we moved to an area of Houston called Sharpstown. And I think in the 70s, early 70s, Sharpstown still was predominantly white. It's changed a lot today. There's a lot of Asians, and it's a prime location for Chinatown. But back then, it was mainly white. So it was a little bit different. So we've had kind of a little, maybe a different experience and exposure compared to a lot of other African Americans. But then, like I said, yeah, my dad retired and we moved to Houston eventually in the early, I think 1971 or 72. And we started sixth grade. And I remember I'll throw out a few things and you can throw out a few things. But I remember there was a family that lived two doors, I think next, I don't know, not next to us, but two doors down to us, if I remember right. And I remember the wife was like American Indian, or because she had long hair, or part American Indian. Because I remember my either mom or dad commenting about that. And but the husband was white guy, and then they had a son who was older than us. But I remember a couple times walking past the house or riding the bike past the house, the son would shout or say the N word at me. And my dad, I remember, was there one time, or he commented to me, made a comment or said something to me, but I don't remember exactly. But I thought to myself, hey, that's interesting. Hey, this guy's mom is a minority. And why is he looking at me, in such a negative light? Maybe because his dad was white. He thought, hey, I'm really considered white because my dad is white. But I never really had any conversation. I really didn't want to, 'cause like I said, he was quite a bit older than us, and he could have beaten me up. So I never really stopped or tried to say anything to him. But I remember that kind of stuck out to me. And I remember one time my dad said, hey, don't listen to people like that. They might call you that N word, but the N word is really just means a low down, dirty person, and that's not you, that's not us, that's not black people. So just forget about it. Don't worry about it. So I always remembered him saying that, and I kind of took that to heart. Didn't really try to take it personally, and looked at it that they're the ones that had the problem and not me. So you have any? I got some other stuff, growing up in Sharpstown, but if you want to throw something out.
Yeah, I don't know if it was high school or like we were in college, but I'd gone to this McDonald's and I'd gotten some food and was driving home. I was at the stop sign to turn on the road, window down. This white guy randomly just drove by on his bike and just said, "Howdy, nigger." Just
Oh,
kept
really?
riding, yeah, and I'm like, okay, he just kind of caught me off guard. Why you even had to say something like that? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess in college, we used to hang around people of different nationalities too. We'd hang around with some Jamaicans because we had some roommates across the hall that were from Jamaica, and then Asian people. So I guess I was, dating an Asian girl at the time, and then well, this is kind of later, I guess. But yeah, I guess I would go to her apartment complex, sometimes, and maybe some other Asian people there. And I guess this is kind of the reverse, maybe say discrimination or racism. But there'd be a black guy I'd see out there working on his car sometime, and yeah, I guess he commented one day as we were leaving to go somewhere to get in the car. I guess it was kind of hard to understand at first, but he made some comment about how did your candidate do. We didn't know what he was talking about, but I guess somebody had been in the apartment complex, handing out stuff about voting, I think, or something like that. Vote for this
Mm-hmm.
person. And they said I said, no, that wasn't me. And he said, oh yeah, there must have been a white boy. So I think he was trying to allude that, since I was hanging around Asian people, I wasn't quote unquote acting very
Oh,
black enough. So that's
oh,
just
really?
maybe from
Yeah.
the opposite side, like my brother mentioned, since parents are from Louisiana. They're kind of a mixed race. We're lighter than some blacks or African Americans. That can pose, I guess, an issue. I guess for some black people on the other side too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, I remember I got some more stuff growing up in Sharpstown. But yeah, I remember in college we were members of had a lot of friends from the Caribbean, like you said, Jamaica. We were actually members of the Caribbean Student Organization, although we weren't from the Caribbean. But I remember some of them saying they had kind of a negative impression of African American people in a sense, and especially light skinned people, because some of them told me, hey, they think that they're kind of better than the darker skinned black people or darker skinned Caribbean people. And I found that a little bit odd. They didn't think that about us because I guess we weren't. But yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. But I remember getting back to Sharpstown. I remember I was riding my bike in the neighborhood one day past this 2-story house. Yeah, and some guy, I don't know if it was a kid, shouted out the 2-story window, "Hey, nigger!" But I couldn't see anybody because there was some either blinds or something like that. And another experience, I guess I was riding my bike in the neighborhood, and some white guys in a pickup truck came by, and one guy shouted, "Hey, nigger," and then threw some glass beer bottle or at my head. Luckily, with my cat-like reflexes, I ducked quickly, and the bottle just zoomed over my head because I thought if that would have hit me, that could have done some serious damage. And thankfully, they didn't stop and drove off because they were older than me. So four older white guys could have just beaten me to a pulp. And I was a little bit scared, and I was like, "Hey, what are these guys doing?" And to another time, I think a friend of mine, we were at the park, and white guys, and one kid was harassing him, so I stood up for him, wrestled his bike away from the other white guy, and the guy called me the N-word, so and I think that's when I told my dad about it, now that I remember what happened, and he told me, "Hey, don't worry about it," and then another time I was jogging. I was a little bit older and thinking in high school, and I had some earphones on, and they had a young Asian girl and a white girl walking across the street. They were younger than me, maybe middle school. I guess they didn't realize I could hear them because they saw me with my earbuds. So the Asian girl was, like strutting, making fun of the way black people walk. And she was telling the white friend, "Hey, this is how a nigger walks," being all funky. And then she saw me and said, "Oh, look, there's one there." you know. So I thought of saying something, but I just ignored it, and just kept running. But I'm like, ignorance of some people.
Yeah,
So
yeah, ignorance. Yeah, that's interesting. We have grew up in the same house and area, but have different experiences. I don't remember the part about the guys you're trying to wrestle the bike away from.
yes, I don't know. Maybe if you might not have been there either at that time.
Yeah.
Then I think one other thing I remember from high school, and this involved a friend of mine. I remember Ron Thayard. He was, we went to straight Jesuit, predominantly white, as a Catholic private boys' school, and they didn't have really that many black students there. So, a lot of the black kids, we hung out together. He was, I guess, our best friend or one of our best friends, and he was in debate. And I remember one time he told us, I guess you were there, he told us a story. Maybe
I don't recall that.
But he was very upset because he said, "Hey, he and some other white guys in the class, they were kind of, we say in English, horsing around, playing around, acting silly." And he said it wasn't just him, all the other guys, but the debate coach pointed him out or singled him out. He said and made a comment, "Hey, Ron, your ethnic heritage is showing, like your blackness is coming out, is showing." But he had to make a comment to my friend, but apparently, according to my friend, the teacher didn't say anything or reprimand the other students. So, that type of stuff happened, I guess, quite a bit. And, what do? You kind of just try to take it in stride and keep going. Do you have anything else you want to add in Sharpstown or school?
Yeah, not anything I could think of. I've probably forgotten stuff that happened at that time, but nothing else is really jumping out at me during that time period.
Okay. Well, I'll bring up this other story, and for me, this has something to do with racism. But we had a good friend. I won't mention his name, but his first name was Joe. And man, we were really tight. We say like this,
really
tight,
close.
Really close. He'd come over to our house and eat dinner, and we'd go over to his house. And he was just a single. He had a single parent, his mom and a sister, and almost every day we would play basketball or do something. And I remember we were going to public school, so we planned on going to this private high school, boys' high school for high school. I remember we were "Hey, Joe, why don't you try to come to straight Jesuit with us? We could, go to high school together. It'd be real cool." And I remember he wasn't really sure if he could swing it because his single mom didn't know if they could make enough money. But I think he talked to his mom, and they agreed that he could go. I was excited. Hey, we're going to be able to, go to high school with Joe and be together. And I remember it's like the first week of school. Remember, this high school was pretty much predominantly white, 98%, 95% white. So I guess I remember I'd ask him, "Hey Joe, do you want to play basketball after school today?" Which we always did, and he'd always give me some excuse. Oh no, I'm busy. So I think for a whole week almost every day I asked him, "Hey Joe, what are you doing after school? Do you want to go play basketball?" And every time I'd ask him, he gave me some reason he couldn't go. And so finally, after like a week, I said, "Okay, well, I'm not going to ask him. I'll see if he'll ask me." Yeah, he never did.
Yeah,
He never really talked to me after that. Never. We'd see each other in the hall and just do the nod, like, "Hey, what's up?" For a week. But after that, he just stopped communicating, pretty much cold turkey, and he started hanging out with a group of white kids. And to me, that was a definite sign that, for whatever reason, I still don't know today how he changed. He did a 180-degree turn, totally changed his personality. And only thing I could think of was they were telling him, "Hey, why are you hanging out with those black
yeah,
guys?"
yeah.
You
I'd
know,
forgotten about that until you mentioned it. But yeah, we were really close. Go over to his house all the time, and
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of sad if that's the case, But
And that really I don't know about you, but that really affected me kind of drastically that first couple weeks there, because it shocked me. And I was just really saddened by the whole thing, how he could act like
mhm.
that to this day. After becoming an adult, one time I actually thought of sending him an email. "Hey, Joe, what happened, man? I really want
Mhm.
to. Why'd you change?" But I let it go because he eventually, I found out, became a doctor. So he was a smart kid, but
Oh,
I
really?
guess things
I
like
didn't
that
know.
happen in life.
I didn't know he had become a doctor.
Yeah, 'cause I checked up, looked, or I got something, one of these alumni kind of magazines, and it
Hmm.
said Dr. Joe Modrak. Whoops, well,
Mm.
his name's out there, so it is what it is. Maybe if he sees this, he can send me an email and we can talk about it. So
Just
I think moving. Do you have anything you want to add? I think in college you had a kind of a little incident. It wasn't, I don't say racist, but a comment from a Asian guy about intelligence. You
well,
told me
you
about
had
that.
sent me that, man. I forgot all about that, and I don't really
Oh, really?
remember.
Well, that stuck with me because I'm like, wow, he
Must have
actually
blocked
said
that
that.
out. But yeah,
Yeah.
what did I tell you?
Oh, because he was a Vietnamese guy in a lot of your electrical engineering classes,
Hmm.
and he told you, "Hey, you're pretty smart for a Negro,"
Oh yeah,
which was like, black people aren't smart. What is, how are
yeah.
you supposed to take that? But
Again, that's a lot of just people are ignorant and have preconceived ideas about people of other races. But yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, since I was in electrical engineering, I think in most of my classes I was pretty much the only African American student in there. There were a number of Asians, Vietnamese, and other people in there, but yeah, I guess you always had kind of this. I don't know if you felt the same way since you were in engineering too, but you always had this, not pressure, but you had to like prove yourself that,
mhm.
hey, I'm black and I'm just as smart as anybody else. I can still do the work, kind of thing, because people still had these false impressions about black people. I
Yeah.
hopefully over the years I was able to dispel some of that false thinking. But yeah, I guess
Hmm.
in college, like I mentioned, I was dating a Asian girl, and then I guess we eventually got married, down the road. But I remember she told me when we were dating in college that her mom was back in Malaysia. And her mom didn't approve of us seeing each other at all. I remember she told
Oh,
me her
really?
mom called me, I guess in Chinese, Black Devil.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
really?
but but like I said, just once I guess it's just ignorance, because I guess the
Yeah.
only probably she had never met a black person. I'm pretty sure in her life, but everything she saw was on television. But so we went back there one time to visit, and I guess she had some other brothers and sisters, and their kids just liked me a lot, fell in love with me, and I think eventually she did too. But it just kind of goes
Hmm.
to show like people can just the ignorance people can have, about other races, how strong it is, and I guess
Yeah.
I was able to kind of show her that, hey, yeah, I guess people are people. I'm sure there's similar people of all races who can have some stereotypes about too.
Yeah, I don't remember you ever telling me that. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's kind of surprising because we're not that skin color should be an issue, but we're not dark skinned. So even being light black men, people still have a lot of prejudices against you, and
yeah, just
you
as
know,
probably just because I wasn't Asian.
and I
I
agree
remember,
with you. Yeah, in like in university, I was a lot of times the only African American person in a lot of the classes. Even in high school, I felt, people, if they didn't say it, they felt that, you weren't quite as smart. So I always
mhm,
felt I
yeah,
was had to prove myself that I could hang. We say in English, I could
hmm
hang with everybody else. You were just as smart as the other people in your classes in high school and college. You're always kind of having to prove yourself. So I remember that.
I
Yeah, I
remember
remember.
the
Yeah,
time we
once I
were. Oh, go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, I guess we had gone when went to Malaysia that time to see her family. I guess we had stopped in Japan before that. I remember we were in one part of Tokyo. I guess we're looking around. We're getting ready to go into a restaurant to eat, and I guess the lady who owns it was standing by the doorway. So we were getting ready to walk in, and she did this like
Oh,
motion.
really?
No, no. So I don't know if it was because of me or because maybe they didn't speak much English, and that would have been a problem, like ordering and stuff. So I'm just making an assumption that it could
Yeah.
have had something to do with me being a foreigner, because still in Japan, like it's
Yeah.
gotten a lot different now. A lot more people going there to work, but at that time, yeah,
Hmm.
I guess it's pretty much predominantly Japanese. So could have
Yeah.
been, maybe not, but it just kind
Okay.
of affected me when she did that. I'm like, why are you not letting me in? But yeah, I remember. Yeah, and one other thing I forgot, and I guess it was a little bit after college. I was walking through the neighborhood we live in. I think you had mentioned this, but yeah, I was walking this elderly white lady in a car at the stop sign. I think I was walking somewhere to one of the community centers. Yeah, you hear the automatic door locks click.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'd be the, I'd probably be the first person who'd run to your aid to help you if something went wrong.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, it's just she's seeing somebody who looks different, I think, and
Hmm.
just locking the doors. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah, that story, I had a similar, graduated from college. I was living in an apartment complex with I guess, a good friend of mine, actually a Korean guy, and we're still good friends to this day. But I remember I was walking to the apartment, and they had an older white lady in front of me. So she had her purse on her shoulder, but she kept looking back behind her, looking at me. And then she looked at me a couple times and she moved her purse and clutched it in front of her,
mm-hmm.
like I'm going to protect my purse, as if I was going to try to do something, try to rob her. I almost thought of going, boo, or saying something, try to be funny, but I let it go because I'm like, yeah, people have these preconceived ideas that you're black male, you're maybe up to no good, you're going to try to rob or assault them or do something like that. So you're always kind of dealing with stuff like that, stuff that's unsaid in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And the last story I guess I have is well, I got one other story or two, but experience I had was when I started working at the city of Houston. And I remember I started working at the same time there was another guy from Nigeria, Sam. We both started working for a Chinese guy from Taiwan named Simon. And at first I could tell he had this kind of air that hey, he kind of knew everything, knew more than us, and he kind of I could tell he kind of had a little negative impression about black people and African people, and didn't think we were quite as smart as he was. And I remember one time we were talking about solving some type of math problem. So he came up with an answer, but then I figured it out, not knowing he. So I did it a little bit differently, and I showed him, hey, this is what I came up with. This is how I did it. He, no, that's not right. You can't do it that way. I said, hey, why not, Simon? I got the same answer. No, man, that's not right. That's not right. And he just wouldn't accept my methodology at all. I'm like, what's going on with this dude, you know? But then later on, we actually became really good friends. He came to my marriage when I got married the second time. He's a real cool guy now, but he actually came out and told me after about a year. He said, yeah, you know, when you and Sam started working, yeah, I had like negative and preconceived ideas about black people, because growing up in Taiwan, the only impression I had were of the GIs, or the army people, who would come to town. You know, they would just want to chase women, and they'd, you know, create a lot of problems and get into fights and all that stuff. And he said, that's really the only idea I ever had of black people. But you and Sam really changed my thinking about that. And I felt kind of good. I said, yeah, okay, Simon. And I didn't hold that against him. And, you know, like I said, he's real cool. But yeah, a lot of people, and I see especially some Asian people, can have negative preconceived ideas about black people, you know.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
And then if I'll close, the last thing, you know, then I went to work for the city of Houston for 30 years as an engineer. And then the last 7, 8 years, I worked in solid waste in the director's office directly for the directors. We had to deal with a lot of these big waste management and VPs, and pretty much all these people in these positions in these companies were all white. So I know, and my boss Harry and I would talk about that, and he would tell me, because he would have to deal more closely with them as well. And he was in meetings I wasn't in, but he said, yeah, you know, they always think they're smarter than you. They come up with these contracts, you know, try to get over on you, pull the wool over your eye. They don't think you're as smart or swift. You can catch stuff. So you're always trying to, you know, show them or prove to them, hey, I'm, you know, just as capable as you are. And I got that impression from dealing with not a whole lot, but from time to time dealing with some engineering people from engineering companies. I remember one time I would talk with this guy over the phone. We never met, and he came to see me one time. And I remember he came in the office. He said, "Oh, you're Gary. You're Gary." I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you mean by that? You thought I maybe looked differently? How was I supposed to look to you? You know, because I guess I don't have a black accent. Maybe he didn't think I was black, but when he saw me, I didn't look anything like he had visualized. But he actually came out and made that comment, and I thought, wow, that's kind of telling, you know.
Yeah, I guess you worked at the city. I guess a little different than working for where I worked at NASA. But yeah, I just remember something similar. I don't think it was just racial thing, other than, yeah, I talked to this lady before. She worked like one of the leads for some of the payloads that were flying. Yeah, we all used to talk a lot, but then the first time I met her, she commented, you're not, you don't look like how I thought you would look.
Oh,
So I think
really?
it was just the way, you know, I was talking. She probably didn't realize I was black, I think was the deal with that. But other than that,
Yeah.
yeah, she was a nice lady though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all the, I guess, the instances I could think of and come up with. So, you know, compared to maybe a lot of other African American people, African American male people, our appearance is, you know, pale in comparison. But, you know, even though you're light skinned, a lot of people, I think, too, may not really realize we're black. We may think we're Hispanic, maybe from the Middle East. So, you know, that could be part of the deal, as we say. But you have anything else you want to add, Gerald? Or that's it?
Yeah, Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I remember I was at the gas station one time. Some guy asked me if I was like Puerto Rican or something like that. So like,
Yeah.
people weren't. Maybe some people seem to know without a problem, but some other people, I guess, weren't quite sure. They knew we weren't white, I think, but it's like, yeah, where are they
Hmm.
from? We're in the Caribbean, or because I know my daughter looks like she actually looks like she could be like from Polynesia or somewhere like that, or some ladies thought she was Hispanic. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
hard to say.
Yeah, closing. I just want to reiterate, growing up, our parents, our mom is a little bit is darker skinned African American woman. Our dad was light, but like I said, growing up, they never really stressed or talked a whole much about race just in
Hmm.
general.
Yeah,
But they always considered themselves to be African American. There's no question about it,
yeah, yeah.
and I
Hmm.
kind of appreciate that because we grew up, proud to be black. Black men and African American men didn't have a complex about that. So,
Hmm. Yeah,
okay. Well, thanks, Gerald, for joining in on this little chat and adding,
yeah,
your
sure. Yeah, glad to be here.
what you remember. And thank you all for watching this episode of Hey, Learn Everyday English. Let me know what you thought about the video. Hey, and let me know, is there a kind of racism and discrimination in your country where you're from? Have you experienced any sort of racism or discrimination, or maybe perhaps you've ever come to the United States to live or to work or to go to school? Have you experienced any racism or discrimination here in this country? So let me know in the comments below. So remember, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about it. And we'll talk to you later on Learn Everyday English.
English.
All right, we'll see you later. Ciao. Adios. Sayonara.